surgence of these diseases?
Well, the first thing we'll talk about the COVID situation. It was never going to go away. Now, I've
We know
said
that
this
one.
a thousand times. The vaccine will never ever work because the virus is already mutating and it continues to mutate. We've had two new mutants in the last 3 weeks. We've had Iris, we've had Piola, which is burning through the population right now, and so the vaccines will never be able to keep up with the virus itself because of the mutation factor. So that ball game's over with. That's something people are going to have to deal with for the next 50 to 100 years, but understanding how to navigate. Malaria is being transmitted here in the United States, and some of the dengues that we're seeing from the illegal immigrants. That's just the way it is. And it's sad to say this,
Oh,
but the
really?
reality, yeah, because what happens is that these folks have already got the parasite in their blood. They cross the border, a mosquito in Florida, a mosquito in Alabama, Texas, or even up in New York, takes a blood meal from that individual that already has malaria parasite in them. And that malaria parasite gets into that mosquito, and that mosquito becomes live, what we call transvariant transmission of the malaria parasite to the egg. So every mosquito that's being born now in Florida, Texas, Alabama, around the country are infected with malaria and dengue, and that's just a fact.
Okay, let me just remind people, I shouldn't say remind, let me just let people know who you are. Ladies and gentlemen, on the air with us right now, we've got Dr. Lane Rollin. Dr. Rollin is a microbiologist and virologist, and he's got a couple other, that medical stuff attached to his name. Okay, and the cool thing with Dr. Rollin is that he's consented to being on the show at least, is it once a month we decided on, or every other month?
Once a month, and also then we're going to write articles every other
Yes,
month.
yes. Every other month for the article, which would be on iTunes Entertainment Magazine, but with the People's Chat Room is once a month. So y'all will be getting this fantastic information. So right now, I want y'all to share the stream, share the stream, share the stream. Dr. Rollin, I was in Trinidad about roughly almost 3 weeks ago. Now, I wore a mask to go down. I didn't wear a mask to come up. That was not done on purpose. I just didn't have one, and I was tripping on the entire flight. And lo and behold, about 2 days after I landed, I got this flu was just out of control. I tested, it was not COVID-19, but I know it was something that messed with my system. The fever was so intense, I was delirious for at least one night. I was delirious. Now, can you help us to understand what that may have been, or help me to understand? And what is RSVP?
Well,
What's the
respiratory syndrome.
acronym? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, you probably more than likely you could have had COVID because even though you tested negative, you could turn positive in 1 hour. In fact, my daughter just got done filming a movie up in Massachusetts. She tested at 6 o'clock that afternoon, felt terrible. She was negative then, and then by the next morning, she was positive for COVID. So more than likely, you could have had COVID. But we have to worry about the trifecta pandemic now, or endemic infection. People cannot just get COVID. You can always also have respiratory syncytial virus, which is another virus that can cause respiratory problems. And also, you can also have the influenza, the flu itself. But more unlikely, because RSV and also the flus is more in October, November, it probably wasn't that. More unlikely, you had the COVID itself. And you just have, you were sick, your immune system fought it, you look great. And that's what we call natural immunity selection. And that's very important that folks need to realize that you never do a vaccine in the middle of a pandemic. The vaccine is driven the pandemic, and also the people that were vaccinated have been the super spreader of the virus now because you've been infected 3 or 4 times after having the vaccine. So it tells you the vaccine does not work. So COVID, more than likely, that's what you had.
That was like 2 weeks ago, but thank you for scaring me because I mean, serious man. I did the test. I was like, okay, I'm negative, and I just thought that okay, that was what it was. But okay, none of y'all in the house trip. That was 2-3 weeks ago. Okay, so nobody in the house trip. This was a long
Well,
time ago. Go
the
ahead.
most important thing that I can recommend for people is that if you get a cold, you're feeling, like you said, you're not feeling very well, you're getting a fever and stuff like that, and you test yourself for the COVID, and you're negative, you need to test yourself probably every day for at
Uh,
least 7 days, because like I said earlier, a lot of people have false negatives, but they're really positive,
Positive.
and you can serial convert within an hour of testing negative.
Okay.
So if you feel like you have the clinical symptoms, i.e., eyes, pain behind your eyeballs, a headache, fever, you're not feeling
I
well.
didn't have any of that. The only thing I had was the fever. I didn't have a
You,
headache or anything.
yeah,
It's just
your
like,
your nose your nose is running, cough, all that stuff. That could be a symptom of many things, but right now the differential diagnosis of primary diseases, because we're still in August, summertime, we're looking at COVID versus somebody with respiratory syncytial RSV, or influenza in October, November when it's cold.
now let's go back to the vaccine. You have been saying that people should not take the vaccine. Instead, they should do the pneumonia vaccine.
Yeah, that is true. I've always recommended that from day one. If everybody went back and looked at what I've said on MSNBC, Black News Channel, even on your platform and all the other platforms, I've been very consistent. The only vaccine that's going to work, that will save your life, period, end of story, and people cannot argue about it, is the Pneumovax vaccine, i.e., Prevnar 23. Why? Because even if you looked at respiratory syncytial virus, or you look at influenza or COVID itself, what kills you is the pneumonia. And if you take the vaccine will prevent you from getting pneumonia, which is the most lethal thing in any of these respiratory conditions, i.e., the vaccine is for bacteria. The virus, it's not a virus that causes pneumonia, it's the bacteria which causes Streptococcus pneumoniae is the bacteria, and that prevents you from getting the 23 different types of that bacteria that causes pneumonia. So pneumonia, I recommend that from everybody, kids, children, adults, etc. Get the vaccine. In some places at Walgreens and CVS pharmacy, the vaccine is free, and some people's insurance pay for it.
Because the strain continues to mutate, so there's no way you can catch up with that. But the trend, the main thing that's in there is the pneumonia. So that's the one thing you can shut down. That's how I interpret that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
I love the way you said that. You're right. You can shut down prophylactically the pneumonia. So if you do get COVID or any of these respiratory ailments, you don't have to worry about the bacterial pneumonia, because you have antibodies in your body that will prevent you from getting pneumonia. And this is 100% ball game type of results that we've seen in neonatals. Back in the day in the United States, the Pneumovax vaccine was a common childhood vaccine that prevented childhood pneumonia. For some reason, they got rid of it, but I recommend it for everybody. I mean, we give it in the military. I've had 2 shots over the last 3 years. I've had COVID twice, but guess what, folks? I didn't get the pneumonia. So that's my recommendation on a vaccine for COVID. The only vaccine that's going to work is a Pneumovax for pneumonia, which is a bacteria. The booster shots that you guys are getting will never work in a million years. It is impossible, because the virus mutates too fast. Today came out in the article today, the spike protein has 23 different mutations. And that's why when we talk about natural immunity and vaccines, let me articulate very clearly. If you take one part of the virus, what they did, the messenger RNA spike protein, and I inject you with that, your body is going to make antibodies only to that spike protein. If that virus is smart, and we know viruses are smart, it mutates. Well, guess what? If that spike protein mutates on the virus, it's impossible for any antibody in your body to see that, so the virus is unchecked. So the virus has already figured it out. Versus if you catch the virus, i.e. old traditional way, big mama type of stuff, the virus gets in your body makes antibodies not just to the spike protein. It makes antibodies to the whole entire virus. That is much more than a zero-sum game. So if I had a choice between natural immunity, I want my body making antibodies to the whole entire virus, because it's going to maybe neutralize that, versus having the spike protein and a messenger RNA vaccine. If that virus mutates, it never works. And so you can see the results. The vaccine doesn't work, because people have had multiple injections, multiple boosters, and they still get
They
infected.
still
Our
get
president,
infected.
prime example, who somebody's had 5 vaccines, and guess what? He still catches COVID. So the vaccine does not work. But the sad thing about it, the complications from the vaccine will set you up for all types of problems, i.e., reactivation of cancer, reactivation of shingles, reactivation of Bell's palsy, Guillain-Barré syndrome, all types of other problems, heart problems. And that's why you see now all these basketball players are dropping dead on the basketball court.
Yeah, some young people too. We're going to take a pause, a music break, and when we come back, I want to talk about malaria. There's a certain disease that's showing itself in Florida. I think, I forgot what it's called, but
Equine encephalitis.
Not just that, it's one that they talk about in the Bible. Leprosy, that's it, leprosy. So I want to talk about that too because, hey, I live in Florida, so I want to know what's going on in Florida.
Very, very important. Okay. Leprosy is a very nasty disease, and I've treated people with that.
So we're going to take a music break, and we'll come back with Dr. Lane Rollin right here on the People's Chat Room.
Big party girl. This one is for all those with a magnum butt. Excuse me. Oh my, what's that body? Let's check it. In between. Here we go. Hi. Concentration of the magnum. They couldn't she cool and deadly. The way she talks that body. Fellas, she done. She don't mind none. Just because she got that thing that looking fit and strong. They couldn't she balance body. The way how she swing that freely. And guys them a rush. She the one to touch. Staring at she back like saying this one may go conquer it. Here come boys, let me go.
Catch a bucket of water, keep it there for your daughter. Cause when I done, I gonna mess you around, I gonna catch a fire, she bumper. Catch a bucket of water, and keep it there for your daughter. Cause when I done, I gonna mess you around, I gonna mess you around. Hold my heart, my baba catch a fire, my baba catch a fire, my baba catch a fire, catch a fire, catch a fire, my baba catch a fire, my baba catch a fire, my baba catch a fire, catch a fire, catch a fire. Bring the water, holy water, holy fire, holy fire. Bring the water, bring the water, bring the water, holy.
This rhythm that goes down, sees in your brain, hot like hellfire, just to drive you insane. Forget all your worries, forget all your cares. Easy tension, I come out to play. I'm ready to get on bad, I'm ready to mash up the yard, I'm ready to get on mad, I'm ready to jam them hard.
All right.
I'm ready to get on bad, I'm ready to mash up the
Let me
yard.
say hi to Fire Squad. Bless up to you, my brother. Olade Banks, thanks for coming back home. David Goddard, how is Trinidad? I'm sure it's hot because it was hot when I was down there a couple weeks ago. I want to say, just give some love or send some love out to members of my family because I lost one of my cousins this past weekend. Massive heart attack, Dr. Rollin. He same age as me. Massive heart attack. They didn't realize that the asthma and was what was triggering the heart attacks, or what was it the other way around? But so it's a kind of black weekend for me right now. But it's all good. Got to look at the positives. We're here. So Dr. Rollin, leprosy. What? I mean, Code, is leprosy? Isn't that when people turn a different color? We can't hear you. He's muted. Dr. Rollin is muted.
And sorry for your loss and stuff. I've been in this business for many years. There's no words to say, and I hope you're at peace and stuff like that. And I love Trinidad and Tobago. I stay at the Hilton Hotel beside the embassy.
The Upside Down Hotel.
Yeah, I've been in that country 3 times, and I love the people. And sometimes I just call it the TNT. I think I'm part of the family and stuff. And I've done a couple podcasts for TNT on different platforms, so most people have probably seen me before, but I love the TNT. But to leprosy is a disease that is caused by a bacterium called Mycobacterium leprosy. and you find that, you know where you find it at? You find it in dirt, the soil, and or somebody's infected with it, and they can transmit it to you through contact. But most of the time, you find it in the soil, the dirt. And now what's happening is that this disease has become established in Florida. It's endemic, and everybody has the potential to be exposed to it. And I've seen the disease work in action because I've operated and treated people in leper colonies in Peru. And it is true, your fingers will fall off, your toes will fall
Serious?
off. Yeah, your nose will fall off
No.
because of absolutely 100%.
Is there a cure?
Well, I mean, there's antibiotics that you take, but on the most time, once that disease is established, it's really too late. And a lot of people don't realize they're infected with the bacterium because it's a slow growing disease. It takes many years for that thing to pop up. But once it's popped up, it is established in your body. Mycobacterium leprosy is a very serious threat to the population of Florida because now leprosy is endemic in Florida, and you find that in the dirt, the soil.
So that
And
sounds
that's-
like mostly farmers that may get it, or kids that play in the. But it's a bacteria that is in the dirt. But what causes that bacteria?
The bacterium is called Mycobacterium. It's just an acid-fast bacterium. What happens is you kick the dirt around, the soil gets up in the air, and you breathe it in your lungs. And that's exactly what happens. And that bacteria gets into your lung. It's airborne through the dirt and soil or dust. And that's why in Vietnam, we have lots and thousands of soldiers that fought in Vietnam were infected with leprosy because this was endemic in the country of Vietnam in the soil. So you can imagine being in the dirt fighting combat. The dust is being blown around from whatever munitions or you're patrolling in that environment, you can get infected. So it's something that people need to take seriously.
Well, I'm taking it seriously, and I'm going to get political just for a second. We have a governor that has given us a medical director. He's the one that's running things for as far as the health department in Florida. And this is a man that doesn't believe in a whole lot of stuff. So here we have leprosy, we've got malaria, and all of that is resurging in Florida, and it makes me a whole lot worried because you have non-believers in certain aspects of the medical field that is in charge. That's problematic.
Well, I mean, it's very problematic because you're not really doing things based off a real world situation or situational awareness. You know, you cannot downplay malaria. You cannot downplay dengue. You cannot downplay leprosy. I've seen it. I've treated it. I'm an infectious disease guy. I've been in the jungles of Peru and gone to a village and screened 500 people, taking their blood to make the diagnosis for malaria and take blood from them and do projects for the Department of the Army on malaria and also dengue too. So the reality is that you guys got to make sure that you guys take care of yourself because no government agent ever rescues anybody.
True.
The reality is that you have to make sure that your community is informed, i.e., whoever your local doctor is, I can do a podcast, but they need to be aware of what's happening, making sure that you have medical people that are not in denial, but are proactive to make sure that the community is taken care of. And if there's a threat of malaria in Florida, absolutely, 100%. That you go outside at nighttime now in Florida, you better make sure you have mosquito repellent.
Okay, so I was about to talk to you about whatever we can take, whether it's vaccines or whatever. So let's look at malaria. What can I do? I know that in Trinidad we had to take a certain amount of vaccines that was preparation for certain things like TB. We got vaccinated in Trinidad, and many Caribbean islands have this vaccine. And as far as TB is concerned, we ain't gonna get TB, not unless somebody actually breathes in our faces. So what can we as a community do with regards to malaria, dengue, leprosy?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely correct. And throughout the world, in the Caribbean and different countries, Central America, people do get the TB prophylactic vaccine that prevents you from getting TB, which is a great thing. But for malaria, I'm sorry, folks, there is no malaria vaccine. There is nothing like that. There is oral treatment that we use, and you guys have heard of hydroxychloroquine
Yes.
as a medication. If you're from TNT, I've been to TNT. There's mosquitoes everywhere, and the reality is that there are oral medications that we treat you for malaria, because the most two common malarias that we see is malaria falciparum and malaria vivax. And you make sure on the Vivax you have to take 2 medications. But at the end of the day, you can treat the malaria. But the sad part about it is that most people don't realize that when you get bit by the mosquito goes to your liver. And from there, it gets in your liver, then it goes into your blood. And the reality is that most people don't realize that malaria parasite will stay in your liver if not treated. It goes to sleep and start producing babies and stuff. So you have to have a double treatment for that type of malaria. At the end of the day, protection is for malaria is really, it's going to be prevention, i.e. at nighttime, making sure if your neighborhood doesn't have what I had in my neighborhood when I was a kid, fumigation trucks spraying the neighborhood for mosquitoes, make sure you're using mosquito repellent or wearing long sleeve shirts and long sleeve pants at nighttime, because the female mosquito, and people don't realize that the mosquito that causes all these diseases, dengue and malaria, is the female mosquito. And for her to reproduce, she has to have a blood meal, and she has to get her blood from you to be able to nourish her eggs. And she bites you, she gives you malaria. She feeds at nighttime.
Okay.
The mosquito that gives dengue feeds during the day. And so there's two different mosquitoes, 2 different times you can be infected with 2 different diseases, and you can have both malaria and dengue because there's 2 different mosquitoes.
Oh my God, this is like overwhelming me here. So this is what we're gonna do, okay, Dr. Rollin, because we have our live performance coming up in a couple minutes. And
Right.
the fantastic thing is that you are going to be on the show at least once a month. So the next time you come back, can we talk a little bit more about that and anything else that you want to share? Because it's really important that we educate our people, educate our community. And by that, let me say this to you, you people that are listening to us, and thank you for tuning in. If you notice that there is too much or too many mosquitoes, reach out to your health department and ask them to come and spray. Okay,
Absolutely.
They're supposed to do that. Okay, but they will not know if you don't tell them. So communicate that information to them. Dr. Rollin, we got to get out of here, but we will chat to see which day in the next month is October, isn't it? Yeah. Which Saturday? Go ahead.
Now, you just set it up. I'll be there. And like, it's always a pleasure to be on your platform and educate your folks and stuff. And I look forward to our first article in the magazine. And we'll probably be talking about malaria and HIV or something that's very interesting, or even navigating through COVID. Navigating through COVID would be the first article. Then after that, we'll talk about everything from breast cancer, diseases that affects Caribbean people, that's what I call
and black people.
And black people, and that truly affect you and your neighborhood. We will even talk about childhood immunization, vaccines, anything appropriate to keep the health of the community safe. I'm willing to talk about it. And like I said, I appreciate it. People, make sure that you protect yourself. And like the young lady said, if there are mosquitoes in your neighborhood, you better call your health department and spray, because not just malaria and dengue, there are other viruses that mosquitoes transmit.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do for the community, not just the black community, but the communities on whole, because information is accessible to anyone that wants to listen. Thank you so much. You have a blessed Labor Day weekend, and we will see you soon enough. Okay.
Thank you for having me on the People's Chat Room. You guys take care. God bless. And
God
I send my information to you in my heart. Be good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
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 Yeah. So you all were listening to Dr. Lane Rollins. Dr. Lane Rollin, I don't want to put that S on his name. Dr. Lane Rollin, virologist and microbiologist. Listen to the